We got economic data out of China, take it with a grain of salt, but they're saying exports grew 3.5% in April. Analysts expect a decline of 12.1%. Now, there's a lot more data out there, but there's also the threat from President Trump to totally scrap phase one of the U.S.-China trade deal. So to talk about this, I'm going to bring in the entire panel. I've got Julia LaRoche, I've got Brian Chung, and I've got my co-anchor, Julie Hyman. And the president's really rattling the saber here.
Yeah, I'll chime in on this, Adam. I mean, what's interesting is he's rattling the saber at a time when some of this data is showing us how dependent the U.S. still is on China, right? I mean, in those export numbers, which were up 3.5% in April, economists were expecting a drop of 15.7%. But what was striking in March and April, China exported 27.8 billion face masks and 130 million protective suits. Now, President Trump has talked about bringing manufacturing back to the U.S., and indeed, we have seen a lot of U.S. firms pivot to manufacturing those items. However, the bulk of the stuff is still coming from China. So sort of bound up in all of these discussions and the saber rattling, of course, is that fact, which remains, which is that we get a lot of vital items from China.
And I think one other point to kind of make here as well is that it's not necessarily appropriate to take expectations for what's going to happen to the U.S. economy and then put that into a framework with China. China was primarily an exporting country before the COVID-19 crisis. So to see them getting their exports back on track is not necessarily a surprise. That would be one of the first things that we should expect to see from a country that relies so heavily on its exporting industry. Now, something else that's also worth mentioning, at large, it seems like the Chinese economy might be growing out of this, right? Something that might look like something close to a V-shaped recovery, because the IMF actually projects that for the year 2020, China will still be able to squeeze out 1.2% GDP growth, which seems really nice compared to the projections for negative 5.9% here in the United States, again, from the IMF. But we have to remember that that's for a country in China that had 6.1% GDP growth in 2019. So still a marked decline there. So definitely important to note that, yes, as we start to look at these numbers from China, it's not necessarily the exact same framework that we should be interpreting it within the context of what we're seeing here in the United States.
All right. When you talk about numbers, by the way, I want to remind everybody that we're going to get the unemployment numbers tomorrow from the Labor Department. So you don't want to miss Yahoo Finance. We have special coverage of the April jobs report. That starts at 8:30 Eastern time right here on yahoofinance.com.
Hey investors, Zach Guzman here. Are you interested in learning more about the markets and getting the latest financial news? Well, then click right here to subscribe to our Yahoo Finance YouTube channel. Get the latest up-to-the-minute market analysis, big interviews in the world of finance, and information on how to manage your money every day wherever you are.